Hi, today I wanted to share some information with you regarding refinancing and whether it makes sense for you to do, and what are some key things for you to take into consideration when you are looking to refinance. First of all, let me start by saying I realize rates have been much higher than what they have been in the recent past. And so if you've purchased, say, in the last 2, 3 years, there's a very good chance that you have an interest rate of 7% or even higher. And for those folks specifically, yes, we are definitely getting to a point where it might make sense for you to refinance. Now, the reason I say it might make sense is because depending upon what you owe versus what you can save and what rates you have, et cetera, all those things come into play. For example, let's say you owe roughly $200,000 on your mortgage. The reality is you probably want to see an improvement in rate of at least 1%, just depending upon, again, what the costs are, et cetera. Versus say someone who owes maybe 450 or even 500,000, you possibly could benefit from a refinance, even if it's a 0.5% better in the rate. So these are all things to take into consideration when you are looking to possibly refinance, because there are going to be costs associated with that refinance. And it's very important to find out what those costs are, because whether you pay them out of pocket or whether you roll them into your loan, you're still incurring those costs. And so those are the costs that I'm referring to that you want to be able to recover in a 12 to 18 month time frame in a perfect world. So let's just say, for example, you're going to save $250 a month by doing a refinance, and the costs associated with it are $4,000. That means if you take that 4,000, you divide it by 250, that's a 16-month recovery period. So that falls within that 12 to 18-month time frame, and probably makes sense for you to at least strongly consider it. However, let's just say for that same savings of 250 a month, it's going to cost you $7,000. Now you take that 7,000 divided by 250, and that's more like 28 months to recover. So you're almost talking 2.5 years to make up for the fact that you're saving that 250 a month. But because it's costing you $7,000 either out of pocket or rolled into your loan, that may not necessarily be the best advice or best course of action for you. I recently had a client who had gotten a quote from another mortgage company, and the cost associated with it was going to be $7,000. He was very excited because it was going to save him roughly $300 a month. But when I pointed out that the costs were that high and what the recovery period was going to be, it made it a little bit less enticing. And to make matters even a little bit more interesting, when we looked at it, we were actually able to do the same exact thing for him, but at about $500 or $600 less in cost. So while it still wasn't ideal, it's something that we were able to make his recovery period shorter if he wanted to move forward and do that refinance. Again, you typically don't want to see those high of costs when it comes to refinancing. Again, sometimes it's unavoidable, but you generally don't want to have that much in cost if you can help it. So listen, I hope you found this information helpful. And if you did, please feel free to subscribe to our page here. We'd greatly appreciate that. If you personally are thinking about refinancing, or you know someone who is thinking about refinancing, please feel free to forward this to them. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is you can always call or text us. We're always happy to review any quotes that you might get from another lender. Again, to point out what all of these costs are that they're charging you to get these lower payments and to get this lower interest rate. Because sometimes if you're paying a lot in cost, it doesn't really make sense, even though you're saving on your monthly payment, when you factor in how long it's going to take you to recover those funds. On top of the fact that, again, while I can't predict the future, chances are we are in for some lower rates maybe going forward. At some point, there has to be a little bit of a break here with regards to that. So we'll just see how it all plays out. Again, we are getting closer on a lot of these. So feel free to reach out and let us take a look at it, see if it makes sense for you to refinance. You have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.